You are listening to Star Nation's Radio Network. Communications from home on Blog Talk Radio. Welcome to the Sacred Hoop Radio Show with your host, Neshi Lokotz. Star Nation's Radio Network.
Bonjour, everyone. This is Neshi Lokotz on Sacred Hoop on Star Nation's Radio Network. Thank you so much for sticking with me because, you know, sometimes the technical stuff can get kind of like a sticky wicket. But thank you for staying with us. Very nice. I was just so thankful for Dana having her guest Jan on her show, Balancing Heaven and Earth. That was such a great show. And to follow that up, actually, you know, sometimes what happens is that it's not like Dana and I sit down and we plan out what we're going to do and how it's going to work together and dovetailing things together. It just happens that way. Spirit guides us, right? And the topics that we bring to you. And tonight is no different because the topic for my show tonight is about a sense of belonging. And as I was listening to Jan telling us about the whale energy, I just kept thinking about the sense of belonging. You know, they live in pods, and the story about the light language and activating their codes. And it was just, I just loved it, So thank you for being with me tonight on Sacred Hoop. Thanks to those in the chat room. Hi, everybody. Those who are listening out there and those who will be listening to the archived shows. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Tonight's show is very interesting, the sense of belonging. When I was setting up the shows, I was thinking about, you know, what should I do? Should I have a guest on? And I was in meditation and I was asking my guides, my higher self, creator, what should we do on Wednesday the 13th? And at first I heard nothing, and I thought, okay, I must be asking the wrong question. So I said again, you know, so what's the topic? And I clearly heard, it's time to get real. It's time to get real. And it's like, oh, okay. What does that mean? And when I heard what they would like me to talk about, I felt like it's like, uh-oh, I don't know if I can do that because it's going to shake some people up and might actually make a little people kind of not very happy with me. And so, but, you know, that is a part of facing your fears and stepping into the gift that's being shown to you. Even though it might not be very comfortable, it makes you stretch a bit, right? And so the sense of belonging has to do with an ancient belief of as within, so without. And so tonight, what we're going to do is we're going to get real, a sense of belonging, and how it starts from within, of course, and reflects to us on the outside. So with that, what I'd like to do is to open our sacred circle, our sacred space. And since I had asked Jan to introduce yourself in the old way, I thought, you know, it'd be good to do the reciprocal. So many of you have heard this before, but I'd like to share it again. My name is Neshi Lokotz. I am a Potawatomi enrolled tribal member, and Neshi Lokotz is Bird Woman. My clan is Thunderbird. My mother, Shabai Lokotz, is Leading Elk. My dad, Kabamsi Ben, meant walk on earth. My grandfather, my Misho, Shkama Ben, meaning new chief. And my grandmother, my Nakomis, is spreading wings. My grandmother was a full-blooded Ho-Chunk, my grandfather Potawatomi, and my dad was Yaqui Indian, and my mother is the enrolled Potawatomi, and also half Ho-Chunk from my grandmother. And so that makes me Ho-Chunk, Potawatomi, Yaqui, and also a bit of French, Canadian French in there as well. And the reason why we like to share who our people are is not so much to prove who you are, but as much as to get a feel for your lineage. And when we say who are your people, we're really asking you, where did you come from? How do we know each other? Because since we're all related, that's one thing, but we may be actually related. My grandmother might have been your grandmother's sister or second cousin or something like that. And so that's why we like to introduce ourselves. And whether or not you know the language, whatever language it is, whether it's Potawatomi, Ho-Chunk, Lakota, Yaqui, doesn't matter. We always get asked whenever we're in a social setting, such as a powwow, and you're being introduced to somebody, one Native American to another, they'll ask you, who are your people? And so that's why one of the reasons why it's very important to, especially the Native mothers, the Potawatomi mother who's just upstairs from me, wants to make sure that we know who our relatives are, And so introducing yourself in the old way. So with that, the Neshi Lokotz is going to open the circle and calling in the direction. So if you'd please join me, and if you join with me in welcoming the sacred direction. Mauna, Earthmaker, creator of all things, we humbly ask for your presence with us in this sacred circle tonight as we talk about and share about the sense of belonging, the sense of feeling whole. And we ask you to please come. Thank you. We call to the spirit of the East, the spirit of thought, the spirit of air. We humbly ask for your presence in our sacred circle here tonight so that we may have balanced thoughts as we share about the sense of belonging, so that we may have open minds, accepting minds of new information or information that's brought to us from a different perspective. And we ask you to please come. Good, thank you. We call to the spirit of the South, the spirit of fire, the spirit of energy. We humbly ask for your presence in our sacred circle here tonight so that we may have balanced energies as we share about the sense of belonging, where we belong in this world. And we ask you to please come. Good, thank you. We call to the spirit of the West, the spirit of water, the spirit of emotion. We humbly ask for your presence in our sacred circle here tonight so that we may have balanced emotions as we chat about and share about the sense of belonging, so that we may have open hearts as we hear information that we remember or that we're hearing for the first time. And we ask you to please come. Miigwech. Then we call to the spirit of the North, the spirit of balance, stability, and wisdom. We humbly ask for your presence in our sacred circle here tonight so that we may have balance, stability, to recognize our own wisdom and the wisdom of each other as we share about the sense of belonging, as we remember through our ancestors, through, as Jan said, the bones, the DNA, that we go back to bring all that information, all that wisdom forward to help us in the present day, in the here and now. And we ask you to please come. Miigwech, thank you. We also call to Grandmother Earth. Grandmother, we ask you to please come close to us so that we may feel your love for us and your support. We so appreciate your love and how you nurture us. And we ask you to please hold us close tonight, to cradle us in your love as we share about the sense of belonging, and we ask you to please come. Glitch, thank you. We call to Father Sky, the Divine Father. We humbly ask for your presence in our sacred circle here tonight, so that we may feel your love, and so that you may feel our love and our appreciation for you as you illuminate our path through the sunlight and the moonlight, the starlight. We ask you to please come close to help us see clearly, to feel with our hearts clearly as we remember how to belong. And we ask you to please come. Neglect, thank you. Thank you. We also call to our guides, guardians, angels, teachers, and allies, all those who help us, assist us for our highest good and highest good of all. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Miigwech, aho. Aho. Well, thank you, and be with me as we welcome the sacred winds, as my grandfather used to call them, the sacred winds. Yeah, good stuff, isn't it? Good stuff when you set the sacred circle. And I usually, the information that I get when I call to the directions and coming in through the north usually, and, talk about the star nations, the star beings with us tonight, helping us to discuss something that's usually very emotionally embedded. That emotion runs very deep when we talk about the sense of belonging, a sense of belonging. When I first started writing down notes as I was listening to my guidance and how to bring this topic to us tonight. And Thoth is the one who wrote the words, as within, so without, as above, so below. And we say this many, many times, especially in our communities, right? And but do we really slow down enough to really consider what does that mean? What does that mean? And for tonight, when we're talking about the sense of belonging, what I'd like to do is start as within, to go to ourselves first, and then work our way to experience the sense of belonging as we talk about the next rung or the next circle out, which is the family, and then to the community. When I wrote the promo for this show, I was thinking about and feeling about how many of us feel like we've never quite fit in, whether it's with our own families that we're just kind of out of step a little bit, or especially in school with the different cliques and the different ways of being in education and school systems, out on the playground, that you just don't quite fit in. And you always kind of feel like you're on the outside of the circle looking in. And we also do that with our communities. And as I was preparing for the show and I was in meditation, when I turned to ourselves, and what I felt and what I saw was that this is a place within that we learn about ourselves. This is where our wisdom comes from, is from within. And about being authentic, and what does that mean? Getting real. This is what the part that Spirit was telling me about, was the part getting real. And sometimes in that, when we're doing our soul work, is what we call it, is to heal those aspects of ourselves, right? And sometimes we have to get down and dirty to do that. We have to actually sometimes end up in the mud as we're trying to get up and clean ourselves off, literally. And as you're doing the cleaning off, you find out who you really are, why you're really here, that authentic self, and that we're all striving for that. We're always on this quest for that. And in many cultures, that's what the vision quest is about, is how to be able to discern for yourself what your path is and who you are, why you're here. How do you do that if you don't belong to yourself first? How do you do that? And then the harder part comes is that when we're mirroring When we're the mirror for someone else, and when somebody is mirroring behavior to us, the stuff that kind of, gets under the skin and you feel like is getting poked all the time, those kinds of things. And they can be very big things or they can be very little things. But it's something that is showing you that you have something to learn. You have something to heal. And in that healing is where the wisdom comes from. And so when we start on the inside, that sense of belonging, that, there's an old saying that you're comfortable in your own skin. It's when you can have that sense of feeling, that belonging to yourself. That is the work from within. One of the hard things for many people, including me, is asking for help and accepting the help. Not turning away the help just because it doesn't come to you in the prescribed way that you thought it was going to be. It's like turning away the gift at the door. Oh no, not those flowers. Those aren't the ones I wanted. I wanted roses. And just because they're carnations, you think that that's not your gift. That's not that help that you're asking for. But it is, because they're still beautiful. You have to start sometimes with accepting the help that's being offered to you, especially when you pray for it. And if you're sincere in your heart, and when that help comes, is to actually accept it. The other part of healing within, belonging to yourself, and I'm going to laugh about this one because this is the one I struggle with, still do sometimes. Being a double fire, I have to learn how to walk with that in a good way, as they say, is when you're in a confrontation with somebody, whether it's a verbal one or, a bunch of those email ones where you're going back and forth, and that so far, when the communication has broken down, right? And then sometimes in that, what we don't want to do is let it go. We want to be right, and we will hold on to the wanting to be right to show them how right we really are and how wrong they really are. We will hold on to it like a dog with a bone. And instead of letting go and turning to our spiritual help and say, what was that all about? How do I deal with that as gracefully as I can? Or sometimes do what I do, is I pace around and I talk to my spiritual team and say, what the heck was that? I can't believe she said that. Or I can't believe that is what you want me to do. You want me to what? Apologize? Or, like this one, don't be a know-it-all. And so I kind of laugh about that because, that's what happens when you want to be right. You'll do anything to prove that you're right. Anything. But when you are willing to let that go, and because that's a hard one to let go, is that getting that you're actually allowing your soul to experience and to grow with that, to experience that. That's what we're here to do, right? Our soul is here to experience the physical life. And so to be able to actually allow yourself to do that. And another layer of that is the forgiveness. And so many times we are so okay to forgive somebody else, but when it comes to ourselves, we're the hardest ones on ourselves because we won't forgive ourselves for the imperfection. That you didn't do something quite right. You didn't do it the way you thought it was going to be. And although you're getting compliments for it, you think, oh yeah, but I could have done this and I could have done that and I could have tweaked that. Or you don't see that mistake right there? There's a mistake right there. And had you not pointed it out, nobody would have seen it because it's still beautiful. And so that sense of belonging to oneself is to see the beauty of you And in that, you also get a sense of wholeness. And that, for me, was my lesson about learning about separation and wholeness, duality and wholeness. And when you feel that on the inside, you feel your wholeness on the inside. And that you really do begin to understand and feel that concept of all my relation. That we're all interconnected. And that when that friend of yours who is mirroring to you an aspect of yourself that is not perfect, that we, rather than saying, thank you, let me look at that, thank you for bringing that to me, sometimes we have to say it a little with a tone, I know. That would be human, that would be real. Thanks a lot. That is a gift, though. And we do that in turn for someone else. The trick is, how do you do that gracefully? How do you do that and still remember that we are still connected, that you're a part of the whole, you're not separate from everything else? As within, so without. And once we're able to embrace that and to really feel that, what starts to happen is the outside world starts to change. Because your frequency has changed. Things start to shift. And unfortunately, sometimes within that shift, there's even more of a chasm between you and your family, or sometimes you're even your best friend, because you're no longer on the same vibrational pattern. And, when we're with our family, that is probably the one area that we have the most soul growth, because we chose to come into this physical existence with those particular souls in their physicalness, and to be able to experience our soul contract together. And that's when things can get kind of mucky, You want to love them, but you want to love them at arm's length. Because how many times have they said something to hurt you, or vice versa? How many times have you, said something hurtful to one of your family members? And that is the hard part, is to actually be honest and at least admit that to yourself. Oh, that wasn't very kind. Okay, I know she made me angry, but that wasn't very kind at all. Okay, so how do I amend this? What do I do? And you're talking to your spiritual team. What is it? The thing is that we came into this physical existence within the combination of the souls and our families that we did for a particular reason, for a particular purpose. And when you can feel whole within yourself, when you belong to yourself, it can be an easier way to belong to aspects of your family. Now, I'm not saying the whole thing, because that would be perfection, right? That would be a television show. That would be Hollywood. For it to be perfect, and the Ozzie and Harriet kind of thing, or the Huxtables kind of thing. And I'm dating myself with that, I know. But that our family is, if you will, a kind of our playground where we get to grow. We get to grow up. And sometimes, obviously, it's in the physical sense, but many times it's both in the emotional maturity and also the mental maturity. And when we start to do that, that's when we get our soul growth, because we're learning our lessons. We get to fit into a portion of our family. And I know that many of you already do this. There might be a particular sister or brother that you like to spend more time with than the other. That's okay. Doesn't mean that you have to hate the other person, the other family members. You just feel more comfortable with this particular brother or sister, or aunt and uncle. Or maybe it's one or both of your parents. It's okay. It's okay. It's more important that you share your fullness with that particular person than not to share yourself at all. Because if you're authentic to yourself and you belong to yourself, you're going to belong to aspects of your family. You know, and I'm not saying this is. It can be graceful. It can be graceful, or it can be a train wreck. We get to create that. And let me tell you, I've experienced both. The train wreck, which taught me, literally took me to my knees. And that's when I learned how to ask for help in many different ways, both spiritually, went to counseling, sat down and talked to a couple of family members, not bringing them in so everybody has to choose sides. And that's the one thing I really don't like, is when and you've been there, in a family there's a discord and people start sharing it and gossiping about it, and pretty soon there's a division. It's that duality. It's that separation. You against them. It's the Hatfields and the McCoys. And when it should only be between the two people that have the discord. That would be mental maturity right there, if you could keep it between the two of you, to be able to go with that. I know, it's like I said, it's not perfection. This is where the getting real, getting in the mud, this is where the rubber meets, all those phrases, all those cliches, is to be able to share yourself, even if it's only with one person in your family. It's still a sense of belonging. And that other person feels comfortable with you as well. And it will grow. In many different ways, it will grow. Because, our family members are really our greatest teachers. And I know that we've said this before, but some people I know kind of balk at this, is that I wouldn't have signed up for this. What do you mean I created that? So the one family member who is the one that has hurt you the most, or it gets under your skin the deepest, they're the ones who love you as a soul, at that soul level, the most. Because they agreed to play that part for you, knowing how it was going to be, and willing to do that for you so that you could experience that and grow from it. And they do too. It's not just a one-way street, it's a two-way street. They get to have the soul growth too, as long as you can play it out. There's one thing that I wrote here. I got my notes. It says smoke and mirrors. Because there's so much innuendo, there's so much sarcasm, there's so much going on behind the scenes, the smoke and mirrors, that you have to kind of stand back and think, okay, what's really going on here? And that's when I bring in my spiritual team and I ask them, please show me with clarity what's really going on here. What's really happening here? And many times it's a lot about me wanting to be right. In the old days, that was it. And I had to kind of let that go and say, okay, and I have to say, I'm sorry. How can we talk about this? And, the more times that I had to do it, the easier it got, because I'm an only girl in 4 brothers and in the Ho-Chunk family, Potawatomi family, and with also the Mexican Indian influence in there. And so I learned at a very young age to take care of other people. And when you do that, you kind of have this sense of if I have to take care of this, then I want to have some say in how it's going to get done, when it's going to get done. And it's all about sense of control. It's all about ego. And so having to be able to look at that and see that for yourself and say, oh, no wonder I feel tired all the time. I got to let that go. Okay, that is about longing to yourself, and also picking up the responsibility and saying, you know what, I can't do that. I'm not going to be the family mediator anymore. I'm not going to try to make sure everybody is happy and content and got everything that all their needs met. That was me at 8 years old. the family mediator. So, and with that, you get to understand at a deeper level for yourself what is understanding and forgiveness. Sometimes it's a hard path to walk. And yet, when we choose that path, it has the most soul growth, the biggest soul growth there, because you're experiencing that. You're experiencing it. Understanding and forgiveness. I'm telling you, it is not an easy path to take. It can be graceful, but it can be a difficult path too, if that's what you choose, how you choose to create it. And even in my own family, I've been called the Pollyanna. I'm an optimist. You wear your heart on your sleeve. You trust too easily. Well, actually, I discern. On the surface, it may look like I trust too easily, but I've learned how to discern. And even though somebody is being kind of a jerk, I can be cordial to that person and still be able to say what I need to say. Now, it took me some time to learn how to do that, because remember, I'm a triple fire. And in some aspects of astrology, I'm a triple fire. In that double fire, I can incinerate. I had to learn how to walk with that. And unfortunately, I had to apologize many times to some of my family members because I incinerated them. Didn't mean to. And out comes it from the mouth, and it's like, okay, sorry about that. Let's see, let me back up. Let me see if I can say that another way, because that's not really, I don't want to hurt your feelings, but I need to say this. What I learned from all that was if I can find the similarities rather than focusing on the differences. The similarities, and also to understand that we don't always know the entire story. We don't know what's really going on with that other person inside, what their story is. We just don't know. And rather than making the judgment, that what we see on the surface is exactly what we're getting, and that's not necessarily true. That's that discernment. And for us empaths, we can kind of feel when somebody's telling us the truth or not, right? Because when they're not telling us the truth, we don't feel very good about it, literally. I get kind of a knot in my stomach or my solar plexus, and I'm watching body language is really big in oral traditional cultures. And so you're watching body language, and their body language doesn't match their words. Their behavior doesn't match their words. And so when we're looking for similarities rather than focusing on the differences, we can come to a path of peace, or at least more peaceful than only focusing on the differences. Sense of belonging in your family. And really, it has to start with you. It starts with your own behavior. If you want a sense of belonging, you have to actually go to some of those family dinners. You actually have to go hang out with Uncle Harry, the person who tells the same story over and over and over and over. and feel okay with, I've heard that story before. Yeah, but I really like that story. And then you can actually start asking them questions about, what was it like, if it's a story about their childhood, what was that like for you in the 1930s? So you can take the story that you've heard a gazillion times, but you can also use it as a way to explore together their memories about their childhood, or maybe what was their first time they drove a car, that kind of stuff, So it's looking for the similarities. I know it sounds like this is, she's just talking about how easy it could be. Listen, I've walked that path. And I still am. If I'm still in a physical body, that means I'm still learning. Still learning. Thank you, Nikki. Nikki is saying in the chat room, wow, you're making a ton of sense to me. Thank you, Nikki. I'm glad. I'm really glad that we can be talking about something that is going to be helpful. That's what I'm trying to do here tonight, is to be helpful, that sense of belonging. And when you really look at that, what we're doing when we start within, as within, so is out, when we're starting with ourselves, that is, we're a part of all creation, that is really a micro level, right? And so as we expand out to our families, we get a little bit our circle gets a little bit bigger, and so it goes to a macro. And when you start talking about your community and how you fit into your community, who do you belong with? Who do you belong with? Who do you feel comfortable with in your community? Last week we did a show on Sacred Hoop about the sisters, our sisterhood. And really that show could have been about a sense of belonging. Being with people who accept you for who you are, how you are, and having joy in all of that. And not saying that we don't see eye to eye on everything, because we're individuals too, and so we have certain perspectives of certain things, and to be able to talk about theories and modalities and that kind of thing, and still maybe disagree about something, but do it respectfully. And it's like, oh yeah, I never thought of it that way. I never thought. Christine said, Sister Christine, who's in the chat room, said, I love the sisters. And so it's a sense of belonging. And I know that when we search, I think that's part of our soul contract, a part of our DNA, is that we are on a quest to belong. Our soul desires, it craves to belong. And so we're constantly looking for, searching for a place to belong. It's a quest. That's kind of like the vision quest that Dana was writing out about in the chat room. She said the sacred ceremony, the Hamlecha, the vision quest, crying for a dream, crying for that vision, a sense of where am I going? How am I doing this? Who are my helpers in all this? In the Celtic tradition, and I don't know, it could be older than that. I'll have to check with my friend Amantha, the Paradisus, that is similar to a soul quest, a Paradisus. It's that the medicine people of that culture, they talk about getting into the boat and canoeing or paddling the ancient waters, and it's a soul quest. Looking, for me, that's a sense of belonging. Where am I going? What am I doing? Where are my people? And that's one of the reasons why we introduce the Native Americans in our culture. The way we introduce ourselves sometimes, or when we're introduced to someone, we ask them, who are your people? It's that sense of belonging. And so you tell them who your people are, who your parents are, who your grandparents are, where you live. I live in Toma, Wisconsin. I live in a place in Wisconsin that is the Ho-Chunk Indian country that is kind of slightly overlapping with the Ojibwa, the Anishinaabe. And so this is kind of a mixture of cultures, a bit. A lot of intermarrying had been going on for generations in this area of Wisconsin. And so so when people ask me about that and I describe that to them, they can get a sense of who my people are, where I belong. Now that doesn't mean that if I haven't done my inner work, that I really still feel like I belong to these people. They're my nation, they're who I am affiliated with. But sometimes, even with that, some people don't feel like they belong. They might be a card-carrying tribal member, and they don't feel a part of that nation. Because it could be belief systems don't match up. It could be that, that let's say that their parents, one of their parents was say, a Ho-Chunk. And one parent was a non-native person. And the child grows up with a non-native parent. And so they never really get to know that side of them, that cultural and spiritual side of them as a Ho-Chunk. And so they are able to be enrolled they meet the qualifications of enrollment. That's a whole other story, whole other show. But they don't really emotionally, mentally belong to that group of people because they never grew up with it. They don't. It's a foreign land to them. Okay. Yeah. Searching for like-minded people. And this is really where your discernment comes into play. And we've all been down that path. We've all chosen a class or a teacher that when you realize, oh, what am I doing here? This doesn't feel right. Or, this goes completely against everything that I thought was true. And how do I bring that into alignment with me, or do I not? It's all about that discernment. And it's also about being able to, my mother just said this to me yesterday, I think it was. She says, that old saying, you are who your friends are? It really is true. I know, hard to believe, hard to say that is true. That's right. That you are who your friends are. And so that's why it's very important to select the people who are going to be around you that you're on the same vibrational frequency. Because otherwise it doesn't feel good. You'll always feel like somebody's poking you. Somebody's always poking you. And so that's why you need that discernment. Are we on the same frequency? One of the things that, when it comes to community stuff, because it's at the macro, and we're heading into that, 'tis the season, and that is the election time, and we're going to be seeing all kinds of commercials on television, and we're going to be hearing about, debating this and debating that, and it's all, for me, when I look at that, all I see is duality and separation. People are dividing into red and blue states. How more divided can you be that way? It's just, and the environment. That is another one, especially coming from a Native American family, which kind of is a good segue to the next piece I wanted to share with you, is, as in generally speaking, and I'm not speaking for any particular nation or any particular Native American person. I can only speak for myself in specifics. But generally, there is a concept that we are to take care of Mother Earth, Grandmother Earth. We are to take care of her because she's our mother, right? And I know that many people out there believe that. What I'm trying to get at is that sometimes what happens is Native America, Indian country, we tend to have this myth about us, or this romanticized version, this Hollywood image, that all Native Americans have this belief that we are here to take care of Grandmother Earth, when that simply is not true. They may have learned that when they were growing up. If they grew up in the culture, they may have learned that. But, over time, when they have been educated into certain schools and other belief systems, they may not believe that anymore. They may believe that, about the corporations and how the corporations are best served if the EPA is less stringent in their laws and such and such. So what I'm saying is, just because you're a Native American doesn't mean that you fit into the thought beliefs of the nation that you belong to or that you're enrolled with. Yeah, I know. Popping a little bubbles out there. Sorry about that, but this is the part that I knew that I was going to be feeling the pressure, I guess is a good word for it, the pressure. Because one of the things that early on when I started teaching, and even before I started teaching full-time, I would be getting questions sometimes, especially just about anybody. I was working at the casino, I got the same question. Worked for the state of Wisconsin, I got the same question. People would always ask me about being Native American and our beliefs and wanting to come to a powwow with me, or asking me about Native American religions and wanting. They were searching. They were on their own quest. They were looking for something. And many people feel that they can find it in Native America, in Indian country. And when I ask people, why are you attracted to? Why do you hold a belief that is a Native American belief closer to you than, say, a Celtic belief or a Germanic belief, or a Catholic belief or a Lutheran belief? And because I wanted to know, I was curious as much as they were curious. And many times the answer that I received is that they were looking for something that was real, something that they were looking for that spirituality that they didn't feel was in their life. I remember one time this one lady, we were in Michigan. No, I'm sorry, not Michigan, Minnesota, another M word, on the other side of me, Minnesota. And we're at the Shakopee reservation at their casino. We were at a meeting and we're staying there. We're eating. She was a coworker of mine, and we were talking. And she was, she really loved the decor in there and all that. And so I was asking her about her background. Who are your people? And it took a while for me to understand, or try to understand from her, that she was English, but she didn't know anything about her cultural background, nothing. And so her belief is that there was nothing there for her to draw on, nothing. And it was quite deep conversation, because he said that there is something for you to draw on. There's lots of, look, the UK, England, they conquered the world. You don't think that there's something there? Come on. We have the Druids. We have the original tree huggers, right? And so what I'm trying to say is that some people in their search don't look within. They don't look in their own backyard. They don't try to understand that aspect of themselves. And what they do is they start searching for outside of themselves. And hopefully that will bring them back to the looking of within. The looking of within. When I talk to other Native American people, and I tell you, sometimes people don't like what I do, that I'm teaching non-Native people ceremony. Who do you think you are? Why do you do that? Why are you sharing your medicine dress with them? And some Native American people, and I don't want to say everybody, but there are some who feel that non-Native people have no business having our spirituality and our lifestyle. And, and in my world, you can't own spirit. Spirit's everywhere. Spirit is definitely runs through other cultures, other belief systems. And those Native Americans who don't believe that we should be sharing this information with non-Natives, one of the things that they do tell me is that they've taken everything from us, and now they want our spirit too. They want our medicine too. Haven't we given enough? Haven't they taken enough from us? And some of them actually see this as another way of a genocide. That the same smallpox-laden blankets situation. I know that's kind of dramatic, a little drama. But, and at first, I had to discern that for myself. I had to go within to see how I really feel about that. Is it like, how the Japanese in the 70s came to the United States and they took a lot of Native American beadwork patterns and started mass producing them because you could make them cheaper. But actually that in its backlash created a federal law about not being able to sell something that's stamped or called Native American when you're not Native American. When I was talking about Japan doing this back in the 70s, I used to work at Parsons Indian Trading Post in Lake Delton, Wisconsin, and we had a name for it because we had two different kinds of beadwork there. We had the beadwork in the museum that there were some pieces for sale, and a lot of Native Americans would come in there to buy their dance outfit beads. Okay. In the touristy side of the business were the imported beadwork from Japan. And there had to be, talk about Native American sense of humor. This is what we used to call it. We used to call it Napaj. It's Japan backwards, Napaj Indians. And that was a way to be able to, to say that, okay, there's a difference here between, and explaining, knowing what the difference was between a Native American made piece and a non-Native American made piece and see the difference. And so there was some education that went along with that too. But it's that sense of, talk about that sense of belonging. There's some people, non-Native people, who I believe look at Native American culture and lifestyle and belief systems, and what they expect is the Hollywood version. They expect the romanticized version of that. They don't know that we have our own third world countries right here in the United States called Native American reservations. They've never been to Neopet, Wisconsin, where you can see the poverty, or at least you used to be able to. I don't know, I haven't been up there in a while. And I get kind of emotional about this pieces because this is the real world of Native America, about Indian country. The people who don't have heat in the wintertime, that don't have running water in 2014. It's about mothers, grandmothers, trying to save their grandchildren from drugs and alcohol. Hopefully grandma is straight and clean herself. It's about diabetes running rampant. It's an epidemic. And yet, that's what they talk to me about. They're trying to steal our medicine too. And I try to explain to them that spirit's not for sale. What we share with others has a way to be able to help them, their soul path, their earth walk, to help discern for themselves what is spirituality for them. It really has more to do with being connected to Mother Earth. It has more to do with being connected, trying to live from their hearts, to walk in a good way. Why would we not want to help somebody to walk in a good way? And see, this is the hard part. This is the down and dirty part. This is the getting dirty part of the show. Is when you are a non-Native person and you're out there on your soul walk, your earth walk, and you're searching, you're on your vision quest to find where you belong in your heart first, because when you come to Native America, Indian country, then it's a balance of giving and receiving. It's a balance of learning about what spirit means to be connected to Mother Earth. It's about that spirituality. And don't be offended if they choose not, that they can't show you every single ceremony. Because in the beginning, they won't. They have to know where your heart is first. And you don't know your heart unless you belong to yourself. You don't know where you belong until you belong to yourself. Yikes. That was the hard part, guys. That is the hard part, because what I do from my heart. I don't really care whether you're white, black, brown, yellow, green, purple. I don't really care. As long as you're in your heart and you are in your heart honestly searching for where you belong, I'm going to help you as best I can. And I'm not perfect. Ketchimanadu knows I'm not perfect, but the Creator knows what's in my heart. And when we walk together, that's why we started the magazine. That's why we have this radio network. Because it certainly isn't because we want to be rich and famous. Okay, we want to be rich, but that's a joke. Yeah, that's why. That's why we have the magazine and radio network. Speaking of which, I know I'm going to go over just a little bit, and Lily said I could. So thank you, Lily. We glitch. Another good segue. We would be very appreciative of you. And any of your friends who come in as guests, that's great. Love guests too. That when you come into the show in Blog Talk, and at the very top of the screen, on our banner that says Star Nations Radio Network, there's a little button that says follow. And if you click on that, you know what that does? That really helps other people who are searching on their quest, how to find us, because it pulls up our ratings, our rankings, I should say, in Blog Talk Radio. And it's not because, we think that we should be number one in our section under spirituality. That has nothing to do with it. What it has everything to do with it is that it's going to help others find us much easier. And you know what it's like when you're out there on the internet and you're trying to find something to help you? What happens? You go usually through the first 5 pages, right? So that's what it's going to do, is that if you do the follow button, it's going to help us get up into the rankings, and people are going to be able to find us much easier. So it's a way to help someone else, okay, if you could do that for us. And we really do appreciate that. Aw, you guys are so sweet in the chat room. Donna is saying, love the show, Neshi. You're welcome. Donna, you're so welcome. Jeannie is saying, thank you for sharing with us, Neshi. It's a wonderful show. Thank you, Jeannie. And Mary Ellen is saying, thank you for sharing. And Nikki, thank you for sharing your thoughts. Nice show. You're so welcome. Thank you, Reba, for sharing. Thank you. One last thing is the August issue of the magazine, Star Nations magazine, is out. There's some really good articles in there. I know when I'm partial, but there's some really good articles in there. And wait till you hear Carl's meditation that he has in there about creating with thought. Creating with Thoth, actually, is what it is. It's really good, really, really good. And to read Dana's editorial about living a holy life, there's good stuff in there. And so if you want a subscription to it, or to actually buy one issue, that's great. You can go to our website, StarNationsMagazine.com, and you can download. I think the free issue is for like 30 days or something like that. to experience Star Nations magazine. And also, for your convenience, and we go yay, 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 for your convenience, because we just love this. Lily and I, we're happy dancing all over the place. It's because our archived show on Star Nations Radio Network is now available on iTunes Podcast. So you can download them as a podcast, and that is, we were so happy when we pulled that one together for you, because it makes your life so much easier, okay, to listen to the shows. Oh, well, thank you for being with me tonight, and I want to thank the Sacred Directions for holding that balanced energy and blessing us with their presence. Thank you, Mauna, for providing the opportunity and the venue to be able to do the show tonight. I know, soul growth. That's what this show is all about, all the way around, for me too. Had to stretch a little bit for this one. So thank you so much. And thank you to those who are listening, those in the chat room, and those who will be listening to the archived shows. Thank you so much for supporting us. And we hope you enjoyed the shows tonight. I know I did. Thank you. We'll see you next week. Next week on Sacred Hoop, we are with Minnie with Alchemy in the... Oh, I'm sorry. Take that back. Jump too far ahead. Next week is Spirit Doulas. The ladies are back together again, and we're going to be talking about self-care, okay? So join us next week for Spirit Doulas. I'll see you guys all next week. Thank you. Have a good night. Bamamina, until we meet again.
We hope you enjoyed this edition of the Sacred Hoop